Okay, this is my follow-up video for Three Body Problem. I now have completed the series. The first things I'll say is, if you saw the previous video, I mentioned that it seemed like there were a few Q themes where we go one, we go all, which in the show was if one of us survives, all of us survive. And then the other was nothing can stop what is coming, nothing. And I think it was like episode 6 or 7. I think the guy's name was Thomas Wade. He was like the leader of the organization trying to stop the aliens. He actually mentions Q in his list of like conspiracies. So there was that. The other one I had mentioned in the previous video was the TNAG. So essentially, the way the show concludes is they're all in an unwritten TNAG. And the reason they're TNAGing, and that is this is not a game, LARPing, is I guess to outsmart the aliens because the aliens can see everything and hear everything and know everything. What I mean is Saul at the end is the wall facer, but he doesn't. I forgot how they present the rules, but they have a set of rules, and basically it's I forgot what in the TNAG what they're called, but they're like the rules of the game, and I guess there's some puppet master somewhere. But Saul is the wall facer, so whatever Saul wants, they have to provide for him. And he keeps saying that I don't want to be the wall facer. And essentially, they all stay in character and continue with the TNAG of like, yeah, this is not a game. Or sure, you don't want to be the wall facer. And Saul's like, no, really, I don't want to be the wall facer. So he's stuck in the dilemma that Truman, myself, and maybe you are also in, of like, hey man, is this a game? And everybody is telling him this is not a game. He's the wall facer. Even though he says he doesn't want to be the wall facer, sure, you're not the wall facer. You're the wall facer, buddy. Another parallel to our world is how in our world, you got Klaus Schwab and the WEF saying, you will eat the bugs. Well, in Three Body Problem, you are the bugs. And that was, I'd say that was the climax moment of the entire series. I don't remember which episode it is, but once all the TV sets are saying you are bugs, that was the peak moment of the whole series. The leader of the cult was telling the aliens that they just squash bugs like nothing. That's what led the aliens to say, you are the bugs. And they tie it all together at the end when Benedict Wong brings the scientists who feel like they failed the experiment to get the ship to fly to the aliens. He brings them to see, I guess there are cicada bugs, like all those bugs flying around. And he says, we've been trying to eradicate Earth from bugs for thousands of years and the bugs still live on. So kind of implying like, hey, we're going to survive too. We'll find a way to survive just like the bugs found a way to survive. And, seeing the bugs there representing Earth for the first time, I felt like, all right, bugs, we're both Earthlings. So now I have a kind of a kinship with the bugs. They're our allies in the fight against the extraterrestrials, I guess. I think it was the same episode with You Are the Bugs where they demonstrated that circular, I don't know if it was a weapon or if it was the surveillance system, but it reminded me of when I used to be into theoretical physics. I used to read all these theoretical physics books, and I think it was talking about how much energy it would take to create either a black hole or speed that's faster than light, that it would take like a machine that's the size of the Earth and in order to generate enough power to pull it off. I don't really remember what the exact application was, but the show answered the question. I used to wonder like, okay, what does that look like? Something that's the size of the Earth. Like it was beyond what I could even imagine. So seeing it visualized in that episode, the big ring, I was like, oh, look at that. Only took 30 years, but there it is. Now I know. Throughout the episodes, they're presented as these are aliens from outer space, but the way they operated was much like tremendously advanced AI. What we think AI would be able to do to us in the future, not so much aliens. And then I then started to wonder because, the Project Bluebeam theory has been out since the 90s. And you always wonder like, all right, well, how would they pull this off? Then it's like, this is much like the movie Ex Machina is a present day version of the Turing test, like how it would look now with actual robots or androids. The Project Bluebeam in this scenario with three-body problem, let's say it actually wasn't aliens and it was AI fooling mankind. We always think it's going to be the government, like the US government or the New World Order government using Project Bluebeam to fool us all into believing that an alien invasion is happening. But what if it's AI pretending to be ET, meanwhile they're actually here? So we're trying to fight something out in outer space when the enemy ain't Saudi, the enemy around me. So the AI, the behavior seemed like AI is what I'm saying. It didn't seem like ET behavior. It all seemed like AI behavior. I don't know if that gets revealed in the future, because I know it's like a 3-part series of Remembering Earth. Like this is part 1 of like a 3-part series. Also, I read that it cost $20 million per episode to film.
The aliens say, you see what we want you to see. You see what we want you to see. Now, first you think of Project Bluebeam, but what I also thought about was when I was in media training in the late 90s and early 2000s, they used to tell us, we will show the audience only what we want them to see, and we will omit everything else that we don't want them to see, to the point where they will never even come into contact with even being able to think of certain concepts that we don't want ever crossing their minds. We will gatekeep it out. And all of our programming will not exceed an 8th grade level education. These things were specified, that we will keep the blinders on, we will keep the people in the dark, and not only that, we will prevent information to ever cross their plate that might cause them to think of things that we don't want them to think about. So the entirety of the information is thoroughly controlled.
Now, this next thing, I think it's episode 3, was when they really started using the VR headset and they discovered that it was a recruitment thing to find like the best scientists. I guess the aliens wanted to recruit to shut down science. I'm not really fully sure. I guess they were trying to, this actually is from 1984 by Orwell, where it said that they will locate the smartest minds. This is in 1948, the book 1984 was published, and it said, we will find the greatest minds of society and remove them and put them on weapons projects to destroy manufactured goods so that a surplus never breaks out, so that, spare time never results. And so while it had that parallel, there was also another parallel, and that's the whole recruitment program. If you're my age, you might have seen The Last Starfighter as a kid, and I almost wonder if that movie is what made me play video games. You know, it's almost like I think every kid my age, deep down, wanted to get recruited into The Last Starfighter program. Additionally, I haven't seen the movie since I was a kid, but I remember thinking, this is the first movie that, is kind of ripping off Star Wars, but actually did it good. There was a lot of copycat Star Wars films, that weren't Star Wars, but movies like, hey, let's just take the same idea and make $1 million, and it never worked because it lacked the same spirit. But The Last Starfighter had the proper elements, at least from what I remember, of being like the only equivalent like show that lived up to trying to be Star Wars. But anyway, The Last Starfighter, in it, there's like a video game, and some secret agency is looking to see who could beat the video game so they can recruit them into the program to actually fight aliens in space. So in this case, it's kind of the reverse of that. But I definitely saw the parallels there. Also, I used my Oculus VR headset to go through my YouTube Watch Later list. An Oculus or ever used one, but there's cameras that face outward, and it's to help you be able to see where you are so you don't like run into the wall. But I realized, this is a no-duh once I say it, but it never occurred to me. Those cameras on the outside are essentially filming my room. And I'm sure it's going into whatever database they're keeping everything. Because I want to make sure I also said this. In 2002, I was in this computer program where they told us, hey, listen, you should drop this class and join the database class, because a centralized database is being created that's going to capture everybody's data into this big, central, huge, humongous supercomputer database, and different access levels will be done. And the concept behind it is that people don't feel good about giving their information to a government, but they willingly give their information to corporations. So there was a merger with government and corporation, which is fascism. And so through corporations, they collect your data and then feed it back to the government, because everything is just one at this point, since at least 2002. So just think about the amount. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying anything new with this whole we're being spied on surveillance thing, but the amount of it is so pervasive. You know, your iPhone, you scan your whole face into that. The Xbox Connect, I remember it could see at night. The iPhone could see at night. All these low-priced surveillance cameras that you put in your house that connect to the cloud. So everybody's cameras in their house are, if it's on the cloud, if it's on a network, it's transmitting out somewhere else, unbeknownst to us. Alexa's in our house. If your phone is listening for you to say, "Hey Siri," it's obviously always listening.
I respect your privacy, and only listen when you're talking to me. You can learn about Apple's approach to privacy at apple.com.
And so if the Oculus, they probably want us to think it's filming our room, but I remember reading somewhere it's tracking our eye movement. And then as you learn of the frequencies of the brain, you start to wonder how much of this thing on our head, reading our eyes, is also capturing data about our brain frequencies. I mean, you know, we're choosing to use these devices. We could choose not to have them. But I just wonder if there should be a full disclosure of what these devices actually capture. We do see a privacy policy, but it never really specifically states what is being captured and what they're going to do with it. I mean, they do state what we do with your data, but they don't. It's kind of vague. When Mike Evans is reading to the aliens the story of Little Red Riding Hood, the alien asks questions about the characters in the story, and he explains like, "Nah, I mean, these are fictional characters. They don't really exist." And then the alien's like, "So this whole thing is a lie?" I remember in school somewhere, like early on, when we learned the concept of stories, we were told that, you know, stories are essentially lies that are made up, but they're accepted lies. So if it's a really good story and people enjoy listening to the story and they accept the story, it's really us accepting a lie. So this concept of stories, you know, just like they say, "Oh, this guy," you know, like a liar. "Oh, this guy is a liar. He just makes up stories," right? So what exactly is the truth anyway? So I think they called it like a sophon, or the eye in the sky. I'm assuming that was the big ring. They could see everything, know everything. And, you know, whether it's Santa Claus or religion, you notice all the people that were in the alien cult, they referred to the cult as "my Lord," and they worshiped "my Lord," and everything that happened was the Lord's will, even if it was, you know, negative. Like the whole place got shot up, and they just said, "Oh, well, that's the Lord's will," because if it was to happen another way, it would have happened another way. You know, obviously it makes you think of how preposterous religion, for the most part, is. That we all, and in that same computer class that I was in, when we learned about partitioning hard drives, if you're not into IT, that may not make sense, but it's basically you take a single physical hard drive. I don't know if you've ever seen a hard drive, but basically, you know, you got a hard drive, and you could partition the hard drive. What that means is you could tell the computer that this single hard drive is now 2 different hard drives or 4 different hard drives, and it'll believe it. And the way he was explaining, he said, you know, it's amazing the power of the mind and the power of suggestion and what people actually believe. You could get people to run into a burning building because you call them a hero. You could get them to storm a beach in the name of freedom and just take a bullet right to the head. And he was explaining how humans are very easily programmed, and that we need to use the same knowledge with the computer, that even though we think the computer is smart or whatever, you could tell the computer that, yeah, your one hard drive is actually 2 hard drives, and we want you to believe it as such. Now, there's different layers to the truth. Again, if you're in IT, I hope this makes sense. If you're not in IT, I hope this makes sense. But in the operating system, Windows, if you partition the hard drive, you'll see a C drive and a D drive, maybe even an E drive. But the BIOS actually knows the truth. And the BIOS is before you get into the operating system. It's going to detect a single hard drive. But once you're in the operating system, you could say, hey, you think you're one hard drive, but you're actually two. And he was really trying to drive home this concept of, what actually is doesn't matter all the time. He even pointed out with variables, when you define a variable, you could say 5 equals 4, hit enter, and then on the next line type in 5 plus 5 and hit enter. The answer you'll receive is 8, even though the answer should be 10. But since we said that 5 equals 4, and then 5 plus 5, it gives us 8 instead of 10. And so he was saying, he's like, there's a difference between what is real and what is perceived. And you can get the computer to perceive things through programming, things that don't match the actual physical reality. And it'll believe it so long as it's programmed. And as strange as that seems, human beings, you can get them to believe in religion, you can get them to believe in warfare, that they should die for you, that they should hate a group of people. You could convince and program people just like you program a computer. And it reminded me of the show The Good Place, where everything also was recorded. And, in our world, there's a lot recorded with cameras. But what if the cameras are there to make us believe that's where everything is getting recorded, but there's actually another way to record everything? Like the birds aren't real theory. I think was the birds aren't real? No, that was in something else I saw this week. I don't believe in the birds aren't real, but I wonder if they got us to think about birds aren't real. So we're looking at the birds instead of looking at the lizards. Well, you might not have lizards if you're not in Florida, but there's a lot of creatures that walk by all the time, and I often wonder how many of the animals are actually real, or trees, or anything. There could be so many. We think a camera's got to have a lens because that's how we understand surveillance, is a camera with a lens that captures data. But what if there's another way that we don't know about that captures stuff? Not only that, cameras now could be so small, microphones so small, everything could be, not only that, as I brought up in the other video, all those radar dishes and the radar arrays, we don't really know what those things are actually capturing or listening to, and even AWAC, I think, are they called AWAC, the airplanes that have the it's like a radar that points down. What are the AWACs? What if there's invisible hovering devices in the sky everywhere, recording everything? Not only that, I remember seeing a video back in the late 90s, early 2000s, showing that whatever we think are satellites have the ability to not only see everything that's on the earth, but can actually penetrate through roofs to see all the way directly into your house in full color back 20, 30 years ago. So imagine what they have now. In fact, and I remember back in 2002, so that's 22 years ago, this guy in the military told me, he's like, I can't really tell you much, but I could just say to you, have you used the application called Google Earth? I said, yeah, it's awesome. He goes, yeah, it's pretty amazing, isn't it? He goes, now, if they just gave the civilians access to Google Earth, just imagine what we have. And that's all I could tell you, man. It's not amazing for me to say, yeah, we're being surveilled, but the level that we may actually, that everything might be getting recorded, I think is far beyond what we can comprehend or even conceive. Additionally, think about that 1986 or 1988 when They Live came out, and he goes to the TV station and they're pumping out all of that sleep, programming everybody's mind with the television. Additionally, there's this G.I. Joe episode where they're using the television to pump subliminal commands to make everybody slaves to work for free for Cobra Enterprise. So, yeah, we are in some kind of a pasture, some kind of a livestock farm, and it's almost like a walled city, a completely controlled environment, and we're in a big TNAG. A few other concepts that were also from around the 2002 time period that appeared in this was cryogenic freezing. I haven't heard about cryogenics or people freezing themselves for about 15 years, but around '02, the movie Vanilla Sky came out and was talking about cryogenically freezing you. And then in Three Body Problem, they freeze the chimpanzee and then he wakes right back up and he could solve puzzles. So that was pretty amazing to see. But a lot of this, dude, the year 2002 had so much tech that was introduced just from like a prototype perspective, and then it just vanished for 20 years. Benedict Wong's son creates that fake company. I think I don't know if it was selling stars or selling something, but it was like selling something that couldn't be obtained in space. And I remember you could buy a star back around 2002 if you wanted. You could buy a land on the moon, land on Mars. And I remember buying, just from the novelty of it, I didn't actually believe it, but who knows, about the Time Travel Fund. I think the website's still up, www.timetravelfund.com. And it was saying that if you invest $10 and if it's compounded over 500 years and left through wills and trusts, that in 500 years, that $10, which is also some administration fees, but it should turn into a couple $1 trillion by the year 2500, which theoretically by then we should have achieved time travel. And if you put something in your will for the people in the future to use the money from the fund to go back in time and retrieve your body right before death, bring you to the future to repair you, and then you get to live as long as you'd like in the future with a repaired body with 26th century technology. If you think about it, by the year 2500, if we didn't all kill each other, imagine what life's going to be like. Just imagine what life's going to be like 50 years from now. So in that final episode, it said that the Santee can't read minds. This takes me back to when I was in that special program at college. They told us that human beings used to communicate telepathically, much like we assume the animals do. Because you notice animals don't really have a verbal language, but they all seem to communicate somehow. And it was said that humans used to communicate the same way, but a few things happened. One, humans developed the need to be able to lie to each other, and that's said to be the reason they invented verbal communication, was so that you could tell lies. Because if everybody's just reading each other's mind, or ESP, we could see each other's thoughts. And so thus it was said that language was invented to give us the opportunity to lie to each other. And then the other part of it was said that our minds were able to detect every single creature that was out there. Like we actually have the ability to sense where every saber-toothed tiger was and every lion and tiger and snake, but that this overwhelmed our senses it would just make a person panic if they knew where every predator was. And so we turned off that ability as well. And with it came our ability to read each other's minds. I wish I could time travel back to that class just to hear the way it was spoken to us. I had no idea what I was in for when I was in that class. So now the question remains, did humans remove that ability to do the ESP communication on their own? Or was it like the Santee or some other than human group that wanted to monitor everything the humans are thinking and doing, basically bred it out of us so that we couldn't communicate like that? Because the way it was presented was, oh yeah, humans just on their own came to this decision to be able to verbally lie and lose this special ESP ability. Why would everybody want to do that? I don't know. In that same class, we were told that time was invented by a king as like a police measure to keep people in line so that he didn't have to send guards to get people out. Time itself would be like a guard, a free guard, because the kings were always looking for more ways to control the people without having to pay guards to enforce the rules and the laws. So time now would cause people to have to be wherever the king says at that given time. And the time itself is the guard. And then later on, in order to enforce the concepts of fairness amongst the groups, they would train the preferred group of people to
respect and be on time and understand that you have to be on time to things and that that's the way a good person is. And then for the other group of the undesirables, they wouldn't train them to respect time and to be on time and to value being on time and promptness. And thus they wouldn't be on time as much and would be seen as, oh, you don't even respect being on time, then you don't deserve the quality, prestigious jobs. And so that was a way to keep the different groups in line. I often wonder if like vocabulary and proper grammar is intentionally wrongly taught. Because, for instance, things like the way we talk, hello, may I have a Big Mac with French fries? Other people were trained, yo, can I get that? And and actually, I was trained to say, may I have? Others were trained to say, can I get? And just one time, I didn't say, may I have to somebody at Subway. And I said, hey, can I get a sandwich? Blah, blah. Hey, can I get a meatball sandwich? And the guy actually corrected me. He said, hey, it's may I have a meatball sandwich? And I congratulate. I say, hey, man, thanks for calling me out on that. I'm actually not mad. I'm thrilled that somebody out there still enforces the rules. But I also said, I go, but, there's a whole bunch of people that don't say it like that. So how do we know may I have is the proper way to say it? Perhaps can I get? If people were trained to say that, they were just doing what they were trained to say. So you wonder, how is it? How did they not uniformly train us all the same? And if they didn't train us all the same, why? If you don't train a group of people what the politeness and the ethics and the morals and the etiquette is, it's a way you hold them back. Additionally, it was said that in order to fully control your population, everything they believe down to the most foundational concept has to be incorrect. Things like, does the world rotate and what its shape is, and the periods of the rotation and revolution, if there even is a rotation and revolution, and a bunch of other things. And that way you could always know if people figure it out or not. You could just ask them a basic question about the false reality that you trained everybody to believe. And if they answer in a different way, well, then you got your naughty thinker. We found one who can see. Finally, as it concludes, obviously the main characters have to everybody on Earth has to now go into a roleplay, LARP, TNAG, so that the aliens won't know what they're doing, the wall facer, all that. And then I think that's metaphorical to let us know, like, hey, we're all in the cult of culture of society. What are we pretending about? What are we doing? We're all trained like dogs to go to our cycle 40-hour work weeks and report in on time and leave on time and give our lives for something else. One of the things kids always used to say is, aren't you scared that, they're going to come knocking on your door for the things you talk about? And I'm like, yeah, but I was never told not to say anything. I was only made concerned about it by all of my peers, all saying, aren't you worried? Oh my God, you're thinking outside the box. You're having naughty thoughts, not thinking along the lines of which they trained us to think. And actually, many of the teachers and parents used to say to me, shh, Jonathan, no, they can't handle what you're talking about. You're confusing the kids. They're not able to think about that. So there's this ongoing withholding of information from people. Not only that, I remember one of the teachers said, hey, you don't need to do this work. We just assign this work to the students to occupy them, to keep them busy. And I'm like, well, why? Oh, well, the society needs garbage men and other people. I'm like, yeah, but some of these guys swear they're smarter than I am. So we are intentionally conditioning different. Oh, one thing I also remember from the show was when they had all the scientists together to figure out how they need to travel through space to get to wherever. None of them wanted to act. All they wanted to do was ideate and sit around and come up with ideas, but not actually put anything into motion. There's nothing that I despise more than people that only want to ideate and sit there and think about things. Or, oh, I'm not one of those doer guys. I'm an idea man. And it's like, hey, I got all the ideas in the world. I don't need any extra idea men. I need people to actually do things. Oh, no, that's not me. I'm an idea man. I'm above that. And yeah, so the ideation, one thing, there was that commercial in 2006 by IBM, less ideating, start doing. And all those people were in the mode, we're ideating. Like, what are you guys doing? Oh, we're ideating. Yeah, I'd love to just go to work and ideate every day. And, earlier we heard about all these fake jobs at Twitter that used to exist. How do I get in on that? But there's a bunch of people that just want to, let's just ideate. And I've met gazillions of them in my life. I look for doers. I look for people that put ideas into action. Okay, I don't, to just sit around and philosophize and flights of fancy. The rapper Warren G said, I don't want to dream about getting paid. And it goes beyond just money. We need to, James Arthur Ray used to say, the universe loves action. Okay. The universe doesn't love you if you're just sitting on the couch thinking about things. You got to put the plan into action. And that is what holds most people back, is they can't bring themselves to do action. And it's from a lack of confidence. And they can't just do it. Do the Nike thing. Just do it. Remember Shia LaBeouf? Just do it. In addition to the lack of confidence, what they actually fear is criticism. Whether it's private criticism or public criticism, they fear criticism. It's like they can't be criticized. And that fear of criticism cripples them from actually getting anything done. Dude, I am criticized all the time, daily throughout my life, because I don't do things the way everybody else does them, the way everybody was trained to do it. I've always chose to do things my way because I want to be the main character and I want to control the character, and I'm not here for someone else. You know that line from Atlas Shrugged, John Galt? I swear upon my life that I won't live for another man and wouldn't expect another man to live for me. Something along those lines. And I despise being used as a slave. I am not a slave. I am a free man. And therefore, I will do things and say things that are outside of the conditioned rule set because I do not observe the rule set. Just like in the scene also from Atlas Shrugged when the trial of Hank Reardon, they ask him to explain himself and he goes, I don't owe you an explanation, but I could give you 1,000 of them. And then he starts rattling off why he's right and why they're so wrong. The lack of individualism. People are trained to be part of the collective and it's beat out of them to be part of the individualism. And I didn't even understand the power of confidence. I've always been confident, but groups always beat the confidence out of you and shun whoever shows confidence that's higher than the group. Everybody's got to humble themselves and bow down and beg and get on a knee and beg to the group to be part of it, instead of encouraging the individuality to shine, to elevate, to go beyond the group, to fly high. And since it's beat out of you, and it was never promoted, but as I got older, once I hit about 18, I understood. I was like, wait a minute, it's confidence that everybody fears. So I'm going to drive this down their effing face for trying to beat it out of me. And even before that, I was never going to comply with the rules of a group just to comply. If I liked the rule, I would adopt it. So I'm not just being a contrarian to be a contrarian, or to be a person that despises authority because he's got some kind of, issues with authority. It's not even issues with authority. It's I am the main character. Now, you could be a main character too. There's more than one main character. I'm not saying because I'm the main character, you can't be the main character. Don't be the thinker, be the doer. Get it done, get it done. But the biggest question is, who is the Santee of our world? Who created all these rules that we all live by? And who trained those kids to say, shh, Jonathan, aren't you scared that who's going to come knock on my door? Who's out there? Who's out there that trained you to keep your mouth shut your whole entire life, to fear having an independent thought, and the fear of the criticism that's crippled you to actually get anything done? Who's the big boogeyman? I want to know. So who's controlling all this? Who's successfully kept everybody's mouth shut? Do not expect me to be in fear of the shun tactic that is used to keep everybody in the group in line. So anyway, that wraps it up. Did I cover everything you wanted me to cover? What did I miss? What was there for me to find that I didn't see? Was it the TNAG? Was it the tech? What was it? What did I miss? What did I miss? What was the great concept that you were hoping Jonathan Lippy would see and mention? I hope I got them all. I hope I hit them all. I hope I hit a lot of things that you didn't think about over this video and the other video. I think combined over 40 minutes I've talked about this show now. So if you've seen it, let me know. Did I cover it all? What did you want me to cover? What did you see in it that was so special? I thought the show was good. Great characters, great directing, great editing, great special effects. What I really liked about it, and I like this in all shows that do this, is where there's a set of rules that get revealed. So the numbers that showed up on her eyes, that some of the characters would see the countdown. It's like, okay, so how does that countdown work? Which it never really was explained, other than they could print, you see what we want you to see, which then makes you wonder, if they say you see what we want you to see, is everybody plugged in to some kind of program that allows them to get you to see what they want you to see? I guess we'll find out. I haven't read all the books, so I don't know. Well, I'll just have to wait for extra series. But that, those are reveals that I think it's pretty captivating sci-fi when you create a new set of rules on how reality works, and throughout the show reveal how these new physics work, how these new techs work, things like that. Anyway, I enjoyed the show. I completed it. May the force be with you, and I'll see you next time.